Hi, I'm Paul Shaffer,
I'm Will Lee.
and you are watching the Letterman Podcast.
Welcome once again to the Letterman Podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. Let's not bury the lead. We got Anton Fig, the drummer, known as Anton Fig, or Anton Zip, or Buddy Rich Jr. Anton, of course, was the drummer for the world's most dangerous band and the CBS Orchestra. 29 years. He came in, took over for Steve Jordan a few years into the run, and held on to it, and talked about the idea of this gig and holding on to it, and how it really attached itself to him and his sensibility and who he was. And he absolutely, loved every minute of being the drummer for Paul Shaffer and the world's most dangerous band in the CBS Orchestra. Anton is just, he's a classy, fun guy. And we have a really great conversation. Again, one of those conversations where, my expectations are high for a lot of these conversations. And then the conversation itself just blows the expectation out of the water. We go through all sorts of stuff from his, where he grew up in South Africa to moving to the States to study music, getting involved in the scene, almost becoming a member of Kiss, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to think I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss. The drums on that track are our own Anton Fig. And then, of course, getting the gig with Dave, how it happened, some of the other artists he's worked with, I should say, outside of the show, and then moments in the show, people in the show that he worked with, his take on some of the amazing things. I'm glad we have this one out of the way, and we could have gone on for 2 or 3 more hours. I've got a card full of things that we didn't get to even, but it's a great intro conversation, and it's just a really, really cool starting point. I think we did talk about some things that haven't necessarily gone out there that folks might know about. Don Giller has a couple things on his channel with Anton. I would highly recommend searching them out. And then, of course, Anton had one of the staff favorite moments on the Letterman channel. Definitely worth checking that out. This conversation talks about a couple of those things, but he goes into a lot of other stuff. I tried to put things into this topics into this particular conversation that might not have gone out there in other venues. So Anton is just a phenomenal guy. Appreciate him so much. We talked about Warren Zevon, and one of the lines that Dave used to talk about all the time. I don't have it committed to memory the way that Dave does. Was one of the lines from Searching for a Heart. It's in the chorus. I'm searching for a heart, searching everyone. They say love conquers all. You can't start it like your car. You can't stop it with a gun. And that's how I feel about this show. It's a perfect line to describe how I feel about this show. It's something that is not of this world. It's something outside of that. And the gratefulness that Anton feels for the career that he has, that's the gratefulness I feel for this show. It's the gratefulness I feel for all of the things that they did. After talking to Anton, all it makes me want to do is somehow, some way, figure out a way to do the Live on Letterman podcast show, whatever, where we take some of these unique moments, these unique musical moments that are so numerous to count, and so difficult for the people that were involved in it to remember, because there was always another show. But these magical moments that happened on the music side of the productions of David Letterman, unbelievable. And getting a taste of it today, and being able to tell Anton how grateful I was for him and am for him, on behalf of all of us who have been shaped by this show. An incredible honor. Without further ado, the Letterman Podcast, happy to present Anton Fig. Okay, Anton, I guess before we start this amazing conversation, I'm so grateful to have you here. Before we start, I got to know one thing. Do you spell zip with 1 P or 2?
It's like Fig, 1 G, 1 P. Yeah.
Did you get that a lot? Did you get people calling you Anton Zip quite a bit? Like, was there a time where there was a resurgence of that?
A little bit, I mean, I never understood why Letterman called me Zip. I mean, I think he thought that Fig wasn't weird enough, but I don't know. He suddenly latched onto that.
Very fun. And that's the one thing that we just love about that show. We were part of the club. It was an inside joke upon inside joke, and everything had layers. Before we get to the Letterman of it all, I want to make sure I have the through line right. Grew up in South Africa.
Right.
Is that where you learned to surf?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah. As a kid, I lived right on the beach,
Yep.
so yeah, I surfed there, and I learned to. That's where I learned drums as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. For your surf, I hear that you have quite the surfing game. I hear you're pretty good at it still. Do you still get a chance to go out and do it?
Yeah, no, I used to be better. I was never
Yep.
like great. I was, but I used to be much better. But I had like a lower back things, and it's kind of hard for me to jump up really fast now. So I would say no, not
Okay.
that good at it anymore. I still love it though. I've been watching in the Olympics. It's amazing.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, it's very neat seeing the press that's getting in Tahiti and what they're doing with it. They're covering it very well.
I mean, that's a spot I would paddle out to and sit in the channel. I wouldn't try and take one of those waves because it's super dangerous, super heavy, and the water, like when the wave comes, it's so steep and that it's almost like under sea level, the actual bottom, and the coral reefs right below it. So that is, triple black diamond for sure.
Triple black diamond waves. I like that. So you're growing up in South Africa, you're on the beach and the surfing lifestyle, and then music immediate, right? You started playing and gravitated to the drums right away, right?
Yeah, I was about, I think I can maybe remember 4 or 5. I was
Yep.
already playing, and I just loved the sound of the drums. And I was just always interested in it. I never made a conscious decision to play,
Yep.
just found myself playing. So it sort of, in a weird way, I sort of felt like the drums chose me rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rock and roll immediately kind of the gravitation. If I have the through line right, started in a band the biggest, the kind of thing you did in South Africa was a band called Hammock, which then led you at certain point, you're like going to move stateside and really take this thing seriously to go to university for it, Royal Conservatory in Boston, with a jazz classical kind of a focus, but then a reformation of Hammock of sorts with the band Spider, which then leads you to being the drummer on Ace Frehley's project, where you met Will Lee for the first time. Then you were in the studio scene, hung out with Paul a little bit, Live Aid, played with Felicia, and you started to kind of get to know these people. This is kind of the through line of what led you to Letterman.
Pretty much. I actually I did the Joan Armatrading Me Myself I record, and I think Hiram and Paul were on that record. And I did Paul Butterfield his last record, and Paul Shaffer was on that record.
Yep.
And I used to see, the guys around town. I didn't, know them all that well, but I said to Paul one day, you have a lot of guys subbing on the show when Steve Jordan can't do it.
Yep.
And call me sometime, and he said, oh, you'll get your chance. And I didn't hear from them forever, and then I sort of just gave up. I said, oh, that's never going to happen. And then I was playing with Robert Gordon at the Lone Star, and Paul and Will came down, and I knew that they were kind of checking me out. And so soon after that, they said to me, Steve's going to be away for a week. Can you do a week? And I said, sure. I did a rehearsal, and they said, actually, he's going to be away for 2 weeks. Can you do 2 weeks? And I said, yeah. And I did the 2 weeks, and then Steve came back, and then I got a call, come down to the studio, Steve's not here. And I ran down to the studio, pretty much ran on stage, did half the show, Steve came. And then about a week after that, Paul said to me, looks like Steve's leaving the show. And if you like, you can have the job. And, I said, let me think about it. I didn't say that. Yeah.
You didn't say that.
Yeah. No, I said,
it was an insta-call, as they say in poker.
Yeah. No, good. I'm there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because we think, okay, we'll talk about Felicia for a second here, because it took Felicia a couple beats to say yes to coming to Late Show. Again, I want to get back to a little bit of that studio stuff in New York beforehand, because to me, that's just a fascinating trajectory. But you're saying yes to something that is going to radically change your kind of your normal at that point. When you're a studio musician, going around and gigging at certain studio sessions, going around gigging with certain artists, touring, mini tours or joining full tours, versus we're in a TV studio 4 nights a week and we're rehearsing and doing all these things. It's a radical change. Was that adjustment hard for you?
Well, the thing is this, is that when I said yes, I didn't know how long I would last there, first of all.
Yes.
But
Okay.
well, maybe this will be done. I might as well go for it.
Yep.
Then our contract on the Letterman show went pretty much year to year or 2 years to 2 years, something like that.
Yep.
So even though I ended up doing it for 29 years, I didn't know I was going to do it for 29. It wasn't like I signed up for a decade. I didn't know it from 1 year to the next.
Yep.
So it was almost, and then, it was a very high profile gig. It was like probably, one of the best gigs in New York.
Yep.
Or in the world, really,
Yep.
and playing in a great band with, fantastic, guests, high visibility.
Yep.
You could be home, for dinner. And yeah, it was just amazing. It was something that, I didn't have to really think about, and the only thing that you couldn't do was maybe go on tour.
Yep.
For an extended period of time. But, when I got the show, I wasn't thinking like that. It was just like, okay, this is a great gig, a steady gig, which is fairly unheard of as a musician.
Yes.
And, as far as, at least for a year would even be a big commitment, and so it was an easy decision.
Yep.
Getting adjusted to the show, that was a slightly different thing.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about, because it is regularity, schedule, all of that sort of stuff.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is, you could do sessions in the morning.
Yep.
And you could do sessions at night or live gigs at night. So, it took only a very short time of our day to rehearse and do the show. It was all very immediate and it was all very off the cuff. So it wasn't like we rehearsed the show and then we performed it. It was all happening in real time. Different parts of the show rehearsed at different times. So we
Yep.
just took care of the music and that was it. And then we came in and we were seeing the show for the first time, which was an ever evolving kind of a show because Dave would go off on tangents. The writers would have to change what they'd written, so it was very fresh. And I sort of like the idea of being a somewhat improvising musician. So
Yep.
the idea of a show that improvises, and that was like, right up my alley. I kind of liked that spontaneity, and I liked that you never knew what was going to happen next.
Did you have kind of a knack for comedy before you started the gig? Like, I mean, even the first night when Dave announces you, you give him a rim shot during a joke, that kind of a thing. So there's a timing there where you're having to listen to what the host is saying and what's going on or what's going on in the interview. And then if you're going to take part, you did that your very first official night. When it came to comedy, was that something that developed over the years and your role in that, was that something that Paul directed you towards, or was it just something that naturally kind of came from you knowing what the gig is?
Yeah, I think, I think I can be funny at times, but I don't really work at it.
Yeah.
But I think that if anything, like Dave kind of encouraged it and made the writers write stuff for me as well. Aside from the room shots and that, you couldn't really speak out of place on the show.
Right.
So the writers did stuff. But I remember one time we were in Chicago, and this was during rehearsal. Yeah. And the drums were up way high up on a riser at the back. It was like a huge hall in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that joke, there's a joke, and the punchline is, "I can see your house from here." Do you know that joke?
Yep.
Anyway, so I was up on the riser and we were in rehearsal, and I just blurted out, "Hey, Dave," I shouted, "Hey, Dave." He goes, "What?" And everyone went really quiet because you're not supposed to do that. And I went, "I can see your house from here." And the whole place was just dead silent. I thought, oh God, I'm going to get fired now. And then Dave started laughing, and then everyone started laughing. So, but you couldn't pull that stuff on the show,
No,
really.
no,
Yeah.
but the rim shots alone, like you are listening and you are a part of it. It would do the same thing with with a glissando here and there or something, and watching you guys get comfortable. It was evident watching the world's most dangerous band. By the way, check it out right there. Can you see
Oh,
that? Look
I
at
was
that.
going to say, I saw it right away. I have that T-shirt,
Yeah.
and it's great. I have like a pristine version of it. It's
This
great.
was brand new. I got this one and a white one from Will last time I hung out with him,
Oh,
both with the
okay.
tag still, which I
Oh,
was
great.
just, delighted. What a time capsule. Look at that guy.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fantastic. Yeah, I had hair then, but
you had
the
great hair. Oh yeah, you had the great hair going on the flow.
yeah.
You had the flow happening. Obviously you
Yeah,
were all
I
trained.
want to say one thing
Oh,
about
please.
the comedy.
Yeah, yeah.
I learned a lot from Dave, because what he would do is he would crack a joke, and then sometime later in the monologue or somewhere in the show, he would refer to that joke and crack it again,
Yep.
and or a similar version of it or something related to it. So at first that caught me off guard. Then I realized like that was a kind of thing that he did. And so then after that, I was prepared for it. And I think, it's a really good device. And I'd heard that before in the 70s. A friend of mine sat me down and said, listen to this Monty Python record. And we were listening, and they'd have a joke, and then they go off into other stuff. And then suddenly that joke kind of comes back again.
Yep.
And so it's a very effective thing. And I don't know if Dave ever heard the record, but he used to do that kind of a thing. So I sort of, you had to learn his timing. And after all years of doing the show, I could sometimes sense, okay, there's a joke coming.
Yep.
But Dave was so unpredictable and so like brilliant, and that like you never really knew for sure. He would, he could easily catch you off guard, or catch me off guard.
I'm fascinated by this. I've got to ask this question here. When was the first time that Dave sat down at your drum kit and started messing around with your drums? Was that in the old studio, or was that in the Sullivan Theater?
I can't remember, but he stopped after he had his heart procedure. Then he stopped coming down to rehearsal.
Yep.
And that's when he stopped. But he
Yep.
used to come to the drums and like bang around. And then after a while, I have a couple of snare heads somewhere in storage, but where like he wrote a note or something to me, and then I replied to the note, and then he would like write something. And so I've got this drum head with like, the sort of conversation going on between me and him, which is great.
Absolutely. What a
Yeah.
fantastic I was going to ask you about keepsakes. At some point I've got a cheat sheet here, and keepsakes
Okay.
is one of the things. What a fantastic thing that is. And yeah, Felicia talked about that. She when he came back from his heart procedure, she said she bought him actually a set of electronic drums where you don't have to hit them as hard, that kind of a thing. That was a sweet gift that she had given him. But back in the NBC studio, he would come around and muck on the drums back then too.
I can't remember.
Okay.
Probably, probably.
Yeah.
Much looser. It got a little more formal when we got to CBS.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're going to get there. It was very clear just watching the world's most dangerous band on NBC that you're all a bunch of killers. You could just tell that that's what it was. That's what the gig was. The idea of having artists part of a band, the front person of the band coming on and doing a version of a song that's either popular or coming out or something, or something you just wanted to do, and having your band be their backing track behind that created some of the most, from a music fan, and I love music, I adore music, you guys created some of the most unique moments in music, because these one-off versions of songs and arrangements would happen on the show. You seem like a guy who's pretty present. You knew that in real time, some of these experiences you were having. And I assume that's true. I'm curious, what were some of those versions of some of those moments in the early days that stay with you?
Well, I mean, the thing that I will, got off on was like, wow, I'm playing with these guys. A lot
Exactly.
of them were my heroes in that, and a lot of people we were all kind of older. Some of them came to the show. They were not past their prime. They were just kind of in a different
Yeah.
their career,
Yeah.
but they were still like good, really, really good. And you saw like, wow, these guys, have been good forever. And
Yeah.
like to get a chance to play with them, you know, is just amazing, And so, like formally, obviously playing with Miles Davis was just
Yeah.
unbelievable, probably the highlight for me, just because I was such a huge, huge Miles Davis fan. And playing with James Brown and playing with Springsteen and playing with Stevie Winwood and playing with Pete Townsend and playing with Eddie Vedder. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like I hesitate to say because I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah.
But it was just because just about every one of them was really, really great. And then there were a couple of like impromptu ones, like when we went to commercial break.
Yeah.
Like Lenny Kravitz was setting up for his performance, and we started playing, and I can't remember the My Mama Says, whatever that song
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
And he just picked up the mic and started jamming with us before he did his song. And that was like, out of nowhere. So there were those kind of things that happened as well, which were just like really, I think we did one with Snoop Dogg, where he just started rapping with us during a commercial break.
Will
Uh,
Smith, I don't know if the Will Smith one was planned or not, but you did it with Will Smith as well at one point.
Yeah. Well, this
Yeah.
is the problem, is
Yep.
that I wish I'd written everything down because I can't, I don't know how many shows, but, bordering close to 6,000 shows.
Yep.
And so they kind of blend into like one or two shows. I just can't remember them. And the funny thing about doing a show every day is I would come home and, my wife would say to me, "Who was on the show today?" And I'd go, I can't remember,
Yeah.
because you had to like kind of you had to just forget it. And because tomorrow was going to be a new day, you got a clean slate. It's a whole different show. You're not playing the same show over and again. But I found that Letterman said he had that's a similar, like people who did that. It wasn't just me.
No.
People had that thing, but the end result is there's a lot of stuff that I can't remember. So sometimes I go on YouTube and I just come across something and I
Yep.
go, that's great. So what I was saying is I wish I'd written down all the people I'd played with.
Yeah.
And if they had like YouTube and all that in those days, because in the beginning of the show they didn't, and was able to catalog it all, because it would be fantastic to, look
This
at it.
is you have just done a very, very good job of articulating why this program exists. Because the analogy that I use is and it's the true from a comedy standpoint, but also from a musical standpoint. I'll talk about that, the musical part, in a second. The way that when I was talking to Shecky about the idea of this, he was always like, "Why do you want to do this?" And it's you guys were miners. It's like you were down in the mine every single day, and you would find these amazing jewels and of comedy, of music, whatever they were, these amazing moments would happen. And you would have this diamond in your hand for a second, and then you would literally cast it aside and keep mining because there's another show tomorrow. And
Mhm.
and we haven't done a good enough job of picking up these diamonds now, and that's what this show is. And I want to, the goal is that we start a second show called Live on Letterman, where we literally go through all of these moments from both shows, these iconic moments, these one of a kind moments. I had Harvey Goldberg on, and talking about the performances at the Ed Sullivan Theater, the hybrid between a live performance and a studio produced song.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was every day. The output was unbelievable, and the musical, one of a kind musical moments that happened. Yes, we should absolutely be picking these things up and doing this. This is exactly why the show exists.
Well,
And it's
there's a guy that has cataloged a lot of it. I
Don
don't want to.
Giller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's the person that I know that has the most archival footage,
Absolutely. And Don's helped us on the show many times, and he told me to tell you hi, by the way.
Yeah.
Don did. So too did Rupert. I just talked to Rupert 2 days ago. He's in
Yeah.
Greece right now, and he told me to make sure I tell you hi, and he
That's
hopes you're
nice.
doing very well. So
Thank you. Yeah, hi back.
absolutely.
Okay.
So these moments, I imagine you go back to rehearsal for a second. So like, well, Springsteen with Glory Days is a little bit different, I think, because of the surprise element. But you'd have some of these artists come in, and you've got these, again, this amazing core of musicians in the world's most dangerous band, and it's like, okay, what are we doing tonight? And the rehearsals must have been so much fun to kind of muck around and figure out arrangements for things and whatnot. The rehearsals alone must have just been such a gas for you because of the creativity you were allowed. Then, say a Saturday Night Live or something where it's a little bit more, no, we're going to play straight to album and it's going to be the arrangement that you hear, kind of a thing. It must have been so freeing to have a little bit of that creativity on late night.
There was some, the thing is that when we had a set piece to do with an artist,
Yep.
we usually got a tape beforehand of what the song was going to be.
Yep.
And then we had to come into the studio knowing the song already. So we needed to be individually being able to play the song right the first time.
Yep.
The rehearsals didn't take that long. We only did it a few times. So It was very spontaneous, and the song was very new to all of us, and we hadn't ever played it collectively before.
Yep.
And like when we were in Vegas and we played with Sammy Davis, he didn't want to rehearse. He didn't want to rehearse at all. He just wanted to do it on the show. And the director said, no, I have to see that. I have to see it at least once so that I can look at the camera blocking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we did it once, but I mean, the first time he did it, it was fantastic, so we had to be prepared to do it absolutely right away. But, we discovered the song. The hard part, I think, was you play the song a few times and you kind of get it under your belt.
Yep.
You go and we took a break, then we come back on, we warm up the audience, then we launch into the show.
Yep.
Toward the end of the show, suddenly we're playing the song.
Yep.
It's like, and you're playing and it's going fine, and then you go like, I know there's a bridge to the song coming up. I can't remember what it is. And you sort of just go into it and, somehow you get it in like a split second as it happens, so that was I think a hard part was sometimes, you just couldn't retain all that detailed information that you'd done in the 2 or 3 or 4 times that you'd rehearsed it.
Yeah.
That was so that's a skill. It's like became a sort of muscle memory, brain memory kind of thing that we got used to doing because we did it like so much. But the other thing that I want to say is like at NBC, artists played with the band all the time. And I was very grateful for that because I could see that like there were bands that came on and they wanted to play, and then I thought, well, the policy of the show was play with the band, and there was a certain cachet to playing with the band, and it was really great for us. When we moved over to CBS, the whole kind of alternative music scene came in.
Yes, sir.
And the show was sort of, it was at an hour earlier and it was like a sort of bigger thing.
Yep.
And so at some point that kind of shifted a little bit where more bands played as self-contained bands, once we were at CBS. And we still played with a lot of like the solo artists and stuff.
Yeah.
But we played with a lot of people, but some of the bands. And I totally understood that because if I'd been in a band and we were playing our song and we were going on Letterman, I would, absolutely love to be part of that. So, and I took myself out of the equation. I said, whoever, they tell us to play, I'd love to. And if we don't play, well, it's unfortunate for us, but we can't,
No, that's a very, very well put. Back then, I think of some of these moments. You talk about Miles Davis. Did you? I know you started with rock and roll. Did you appreciate jazz because of your degree and get a deeper, like deep dive appreciation for jazz at that point, or did you always have jazz influences as well?
Well, I was, when I started listening to music, it was like pre the British invasion.
Yep.
It was like there were songs Lloyd Price, Personality, and
Yeah.
those kind of songs, like sort of like rhythm and blues ish.
Yep.
And then the British invasion came in. But towards the end of that, right before I came to America, I had started to listen to jazz a little bit. My
Yep.
dad had a jazz collection. And so I was listening to like Thelonious Monk and Sonny Stitt and all those kind of records, but not really understanding it.
Yeah.
And then Miles came out with Bitches Brew,
Yeah.
and that was starting to incorporate rock elements. And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, so this is my entry into it. And so I went to school. I tried to get in the jazz department, and they admitted me to the classical department, which
Right.
I never understand why. And when I got there, then I kind of did both degrees at the same time. And then I went back into the whole jazz catalog and
Yep.
started to really study it. It wasn't because of the degree, but it gave me the opportunity. I really wanted to seek it out. And I kind of thought, well, if I learn all this stuff, it's going to make me a better rock drummer because I'm going
Absolutely.
to have all this other kind of influence and stuff. And so one of the reasons Paul said he hired me was he said, you know, the same songs that I do. So I had the same repertoire, but then I also had this. I was for 5 years at the when I was in Boston. I only listened to jazz.
Yeah.
Well, I missed out on like a whole rock period between like whenever that was 72 and to 75, 71 to 75, something like that.
Yeah.
Because I just immersed myself into the jazz stuff.
Go, please
No,
continue.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. I was just trying to think your initial question to that answer because I'm not even sure I got to the answer.
Oh no, you answered it and then some and then some. And actually you bridged to something I was going to talk about earlier. I might as well bring it back again. This show does jump around, like it's spontaneous, and I love that. I love that it's spontaneous conversation. I want to talk about, like, for one day you were a member of Kiss. Like, that happened. So you had come out of this period of your life, and immerse yourself in jazz and whatnot, and then you got kind of back into the rock scene, playing on in the studio side of things, but playing a lot of rock with a lot of rock bands, clearly influenced in some ways, like, and then you start playing with guys like, Ace Frehley.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, this is really rock stuff. Although the Kiss album you played on, like, you're the drummer for "I Was Made for Loving You," which is
right.
kind of almost a little disco-ish rather than
Totally
than
disco.
rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a, it's cool that you could then go back into the rock scene and have these influences, maybe with some different improvisation, or, forever changed by jazz. And that probably made you a more unique, gave you a more unique sound, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think at that time, because like now people have a completely different repertoire.
Yep.
But back then, decades ago, really, um, I was a rock drummer with a slightly jazz sensibility.
Yeah.
So, which was different from just a straight on, more cowbell kind of rock drummer. So,
Well, and you go
and
ahead.
that's why I could do a whole lot of different kinds of gigs. And I found like in different sort of music, I played with some like pretty heavy guys in their different styles.
Yep.
I got to like some really good guys. So it wasn't just like on the edge. I could get fairly deep into a lot of different styles. And
Yeah.
so that really helped me a lot.
And pop, like, you look at some of the stuff you've done with pop, like Cyndi Lauper, and I want to know, you never toured with Cyndi, though, did you?
No,
Okay,
no,
because Felicia did, and I love
no,
all of the ways that a lot of the band members intersected it throughout
right,
different projects. Like, I think about Live Aid. You're on Live Aid, and there's Felicia playing with you when you're with the
right.
Thompson twins, things like
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's hold on before I go back to that. You played at Live Aid. Oh my God! Like you're
Yeah.
already, before the Letterman show, already having some of these crazy moments. Like, again, for one day, being a member of Kiss, playing on Live Aid. What was it like to play at Live Aid?
Well, it was great. I mean, it was like 120,000 people.
Yeah.
And I was up there with Nile Rodgers,
Yep.
and then Madonna came and sat in on a song. And it was totally crazy. It was
It's
totally,
music
yeah.
history, and we haven't gotten to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet. All these music history stuff that happened well before the show that you were a part of.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd done the Ace record, and that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like toured with Robert Gordon. I'd done Joan Armour Trading,
Yep.
her Me, Myself, I record, which was a big record for her.
Yep.
I'd done I think Cyndi Lauper was, I can't remember what year we did that, but I'd definitely done stuff, and I was sort of working in the scene. I wasn't really a session musician. I was a kind of a rock drummer that did a lot of sessions. That's how
I see the distinction there. I see the distinction. Later on, the Madonna erotica album. And I mean, at the time, you've been, but like at the time, again, I try and say this on the show about the time where you moved to CBS. There was no bigger story in entertainment at that point.
Right.
It wasn't. And Madonna at that time, when that album came out, I mean, she's in the top 1, 2, 3 pop stars on the planet at that point. Everything was on her. That's a very important project. How did you get involved in that one?
I just got a call to do it, to come in and do a song. And I went in. What studio was it? I don't remember the studio even. It was either, I think, the Hit Factory or the Record Plant. And then and she was there with her producer, and they played, and they made kind of comments, and then I played, till they said they were happy. I remember she was kind of a little sort of combative, a little bit, not unkind or anything, just challenging. Like if you said something, she would kind of challenge whatever you said.
She'd give pushback.
Yeah, but not in a nasty way at all.
Yeah. Wanting to be the best, wanting to see it through. So I guess I might as well. This is a good
hang on. I had very little interaction with her. It was just that one day. I don't think I met at Live Aid, and that was just like one night in the studio.
So, okay, you had a lot of these one night in the studio nights during the run, because like, as you said, Will's talked about it as well, about how you could do gigs around the show, and you did a lot of that stuff. Was it ever a curiosity or a cool fun fact for the artists that you were working for that you were Letterman's drummer?
No, I think it added to that I was a known quantity.
Yeah.
They knew that I was doing the show. They knew that I did it every night. They knew that I played with a lot of different people. They knew that the music came off great on TV all the time. So that was a plus, that I could do it. So I think I got hired probably based on that as well. Sure. Yeah.
That makes sense. Let's talk about the Road Not Taken, and I want to show you something. I don't think this is real. Is that real? That's not real, is it? That's somebody was wishful thinking right there.
That's crazy. The reason they do that is, the rock band that I had was called Spider.
Yes.
And so someone has fantasized that my Kiss, costume would be a spider, I guess,
Hey, for one day you had the gig. In that one day, did you even think about that, or?
Well, at that time, the Spider was in the top 40.
Yeah.
We had a song called New Romance in the top 40.
Yep.
And so when I was asked, I thought, well, I could, there was the possibility of Kiss, and then there was a possibility of me being in my own band, where I had my own stake in it, more.
Yep.
So the way that I remember about it was Ace took me out for dinner and asked me if I was interested. And I said, yeah, but and I thought about it. I didn't say for sure. And then I thought, and it wasn't one. A little while later, I said, I don't think I can do it, And then Paul and Gene kind of said, well, we don't think it'll be right anyway, and their thing was that Ace and Anton would be excuse me, talking in the third person. I never do that. Ace and me, Ace and I,
Yeah.
uh, would be like a faction.
It'd be a counterbalance that would just be, yep,
Gene and
yep.
Paul were a faction, the same way as like Ace and Peter, and that didn't have necessarily good connotation. So they, and I think, it didn't really bother me. And it wasn't like I had made up my mind not to do it, and I don't remember anything like it was a day and then they took the thing back.
Okay.
I remember agonizing for a couple of weeks about it. But maybe for them it did happen in a day, but for me it didn't. I was still like mulling it over and stuff like that.
Okay, so when you were agonizing over it for those 2 weeks, that's even more interesting to me, because it's like you're agonizing over, like you said, do I want to do my own thing where I can throw my creative output, or do I want to be plugged into this machine that is rolling along, and it's more of a franchise, and you've got to learn to play like the franchise. Did you actually think about, oh God, I'm gonna have to go on stage and do the makeup thing, what is it going to look like? Did you actually like put yourself in those shoes?
I didn't sort of have a column A, column plus or minus column.
Okay.
I just kind of thought like, do I want to do this, or do I want to just stay with my own thing,
Yeah.
And like, I mean, when I look at, I have no regrets whatsoever. And when I look at the way that I play, and that I've gotten to play with so many unbelievable people, I think that suited me better than just having been in the one situation anyway. So I'm totally sure that I made the right decision.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And, if they want to say they made this decision, then as far as I'm concerned, they made the right decision as well.
All these years later, the Kiss machine rolls into the Ed Sullivan Theater. I remember that performance. It was near the end of the run at the Ed Sullivan Theater, and Kiss actually played on Late Show. And I remember that night as a viewer, it was a neat moment, because you didn't see the bridges and stuff. They literally had their setup, and I don't know if they've got setup A, which is a big stadium, setup B, which is an arena, and maybe stadium setup C, which is a smaller, but they had the Kiss setup, and they literally transformed the theater where the rock band plays, or where the band plays, into Kiss's, the pyro was there and all of that stuff. Do you remember that night at all?
I remember them playing, but I don't remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember them playing. I remember the thing, they sounded really good. And,
Yep.
they I loved the original Kiss. I thought it had a real beautiful charm to it. But they've endured for a long time, and they sound really great. And, I've always liked them. And, I remember them playing on the show, but I don't remember, the whole setup.
I hear you. I mean, again, just another show the next day, another show the next day. They
Right.
blend into being other moments. Okay, let's kind of go. It seems that for everybody in the Letterman universe, but in a very special way for Paul and the whole band, you had this sort of, if we're talking dynamics in music, it's a crescendo. It literally is a crescendo where you're having these moments, and bigger moments are happening on late night, bigger opportunities are coming from it, that sort of a thing. When the show was in transition, what was that like for you? What year? I'm curious what year you got married, you and Laura connected, and were you married at that time? And when the show was getting ready to end its run on NBC, move over to CBS, were you locked in? Yes, I'm following the show no matter what. Was there a pause there where you were like, okay, is this something I want to continue with? It was the biggest story in entertainment. You could not go anywhere without hearing about, the Johnny, Jay, Dave, what's Dave going to do, all of that stuff, the courting of Dave. Dave is being courted to take the show to all these different places, whether it's syndication, whether it's a different network, all of that stuff. Do you remember any of that time? Was it chaotic for you, or did you just go in and play?
Yeah, no, I mean, same with Kiss, where like when I did those records, I wasn't, I just came in to do the records. I did not involve myself with the politics of the band at all. I just went like, I'm here to play the drums, and that's what I'm gonna do. They told me not to say anything. I didn't say anything for 20 years.
Yeah.
that I played, and I just came and played. I didn't get involved in anything like that. Same with the show. It was just like, this is totally out of my control. I'm just going to see what happens. And I remember I read in the New York, I saw on the cover of the New York Post,
Yep.
Letterman's moving to LA.
Yep.
And so I thought, oh, okay, now I guess we're going to LA. And I would have gone for sure.
Yep.
So, there was there certainly was the uncertainty. Is this going to continue? Am I still going to have a job? But in terms of doing the show, there was no question in my mind that I was going to continue to do the show if that's the way that it went.
That just shows that you were the perfect guy. Did you know Steve very well before you took over for Steve Jordan?
I wouldn't say I knew him very well, but of course I knew him.
Yeah,
and
you ran into him.
And whenever I see him, I always thank him for giving me the job. Wouldn't have got it if he hadn't, not done it anymore. But yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic drummer, and I love the original Letterman band with Hiram and Steve and Will and Paul. I thought it was just an amazing band. It was so great. The good thing, to go back, the good thing about when it was with me and Sid was that I found, like, and it would be the same for the other band, the 4-piece was like a real easy band to play in, because you could turn on a dime. If something had to change, Paul would change, and everyone could follow really fast, with the horns. And this is not a negative thing, it's just different.
Yep.
You had to set the keys and the arrangements a lot more.
Yeah.
Wasn't so flexible, you could maneuver. It was like a speedboat as opposed to a bigger cruise ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not a better or worse, it's just different.
Yeah. Talking about horns, I can remember on the NBC show, it would be very cool when folks would sit in, and horns, of course, would be a big part of that. Al, before Al was hired at the CBS Orchestra, when he was on, we lots of moments where he would be a player for certain gigs that would happen on late night. When it comes to horns, obviously no bigger than David Sanborn. Just recently lost him, and I mean, what a blow. Listening to him wail with the world's most dangerous band, Fridays, like David Sanborn nights were always really, really, really special nights, and you got to be a part of that. That must have been something amazing. And David was kind of he was a sort of a member of the band, is the way I always saw it.
Yeah, kind of. I guess he would be like an honorary member.
Yep.
He was fantastic. And we did a song with him and Sam Moore, a feature song.
Yeah.
I Got News for You with Sam. And he was very specific about how he wanted the drums to be. I remember I went up to his house. He lived we lived like a block away from each other in New York. And I went up to his house, and he pointed out, this is what I want to happen in this section. And we pretty much nailed it. Afterwards, he told me, great, it was perfect. But, talking about sax players, I remember at the old show, Michael Brecker came on the show one night, and he said to me, man, I'm really nervous, and I'd already done probably a few years of it, so I'd kind of gotten more used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, but you, Michael Brecker, I mean, you could do nothing and it would be amazing. You know what I mean? And I never understood like how he could be, but I guess, that was like the humanness and, always wanting to be really good and, setting a high bar for yourself and all that. So in a way, there was like a lesson to be learned, just from like a couple of sentence exchange.
Yeah.
Because he was like, also like, he was incredible, I mean, there were so many good things, going back to Hiram and Steve. I mean, what a band that was, just, I have the utmost like respect for that band. It was just incredible. And I was like so honored to continue that path.
Absolutely.
I never would have thought, like, if someone had told me, like, that's what you'll end up doing, I never would have thought that.
That's a sentiment that everybody in the band that I've talked to has all said, because I think it's such an unconventional gig when you're a musician coming up and you're thinking, how can I make a living in this unpredictable kind of world that's constantly changing? The last thing that you think that you're going to get is a long-term gig where you end up playing with these people.
You know what? I have to thank Paul for that. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have to thank Paul for that, because he hired me. There were a lot of different people in New York that he could have hired, and he hired me. And it was, I'm not sure what went into his decision process, but, it was incredible that he obviously saw that I would be, right for the band.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really have to thank him for that, because it was an absolute life changer.
Our boy Paul Shaffer, fellow Canadian Paul Shaffer, our hero. You would take over for him when he was off. Did that happen at the NBC show ever, or was that only a CBS dig where you became the band leader?
Yeah, it was only the CBS. And, apparently, I was right behind Paul in Dave's eye line.
Okay.
And so Dave was sort of used to seeing me and comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And so they made me well, originally, the first time it happened, I think they had me in the front with, at Paul's organ.
Yep.
I was playing, and they had a drummer at the back, which actually was Dave's secretary's brother playing drums. And so, so then, like, before the show, eventually I said, listen, I got to play on a cocktail kit. I can't just leave it all up to him. It's a demanding, gig.
Yep.
So I played in the front, and I got to talk to Dave. And so, but after that, he got Warren.
Yep.
After I did a week like that, then he really liked Warren Zevon. So I was the band leader, and Warren spoke to Dave.
Yes.
But when you're doing that job of counting the band in, counting them down, calling the song, I had to like write out what songs we were doing, what musical cues we were doing, stuff that Paul did in his sleep every single day. Not only that, while you're playing, you're listening to the show in the control room.
Yep.
They're going, okay, we're going to a commercial in 30 and 5, 4, 3. And I'm like counting the band. And here we go. We're going to stop. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. Because like Paul was in front of the band, he could just turn around and do stuff. It wasn't the kind of gig where you could play with your eyes closed, and you had to watch the whole time. But I was at the back, so I had to verbally scream at the people, and scream because my drums are coming into the microphone as well, and they don't want to hear so much drums, but if they turn it down, then they can't hear my voice. So it's like really pretty challenging, and it made me alter the way that I played. I think I played much more direct and simple in order to achieve the things. Whereas, when Paul's conducting, I sort of felt like I could be a little more
You're looser.
Yeah, a little looser. After the Letterman show ended, I went right away and did a 6-year tour with Joe.
Yeah.
And the thing that I learned about that was when you do a similar show, like a 2.25-hour show, similar kind of show every night. And he toured a lot, it was like we played like 5 nights a week, and with just like after 7 weeks, we'd have a few weeks off and we'd go again. But the thing that I learned was that a whole long show like that, it has its sort of arcs and peaks and all that kind of stuff. You can close your eyes and really get into it, and you sort of try and go around the corners and make them really smooth, musically speaking. And just kind of make it seamless. Whereas on Letterman, it was, you don't know what's going to happen. It can stop at any moment. We start the song. Do I know it? Maybe I don't. Maybe Paul just said, we're playing this. and it's sort of like this, it's sort of like that, because he's talking to us through our
Yeah.
inner. And then, all right, and we're playing. We sometimes played songs we'd never played collectively before, or even at all, or even knew.
Yep.
So as long as a few people knew it, you know what I mean, we could get through it. That rhymes. But anyway, so it was a very different way of playing. And
Yes.
the Letterman show was it gave you those chops for really being like on top of it, and testing your memory, like working that muscle, that
Yep.
memory muscle, every day, and like keeping you on your toes, which is nice because that's sort of like improvising. It's like just, one free associating sometimes,
Yeah.
musically speaking.
But yeah, in every sense of the word, it just and it is a variety. I don't like the term variety show, but at the end of the day, there I don't know if there's a better term to kind of describe it, because there was everything, and you got to flex the muscle of coming up on the fly with jingles and comedy pieces that would be either as part of an extra or a comedy piece unto themselves. And like you think about Stump the Band and all these things that you did along the way, that were things that were on the fly, almost something that you put into your short-term memory and then you just let it go because there is so much. But at the same time, the creative output extremely high on some of that stuff, coming up with these things on the fly. I have this dream, or this fantasy for the Letterman podcast, that somehow, some way, I could make it so a jingle. Some of the writers have said to me, "Oh, wouldn't that be fun if the band could sort of come up with something on the fly the way they used to on the show?" That was marvelous to me, how you guys would do that. How a comedy writer, Steve Young, would come up with the theme song for the Strong Man, the Fat Man, and the Genius, something like that, and within an hour, here's a fully produced, hilarious, unbelievably tight theme song for this comedy bit. And again, think of another drummer who has that in their repertoire. It's an amazing thing. Did you enjoy doing that stuff on the fly and coming up with stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I came up with it. It like,
Well, you ensemble, in the ensemble.
yeah, when I was leading the band,
Yep.
it sort of, I felt like the responsibility fell on me. And sometimes if I knew a comedy piece, I would sort of write a little cue, 10-second cue or something like that. But mostly, that was very rare. Mostly it fell on like Paul, and with the help of like input from other people in the band, say Will would add something, you know. But it mostly came from Paul.
Yep.
And he was very, I mean, he had such facility on the keyboards, such a huge knowledge of music. He knew all kinds of music, show stuff, jazz stuff, rock stuff, old rock stuff, new rock stuff, so he had a wealth of knowledge to draw from, and was able to write a lot of those things very effortlessly. And he was the guy.
And then you combine that in the later years, the Ed Sullivan Theater years, with Bones as an arranger, and just this. It seems like everybody there knew their role and was extremely proficient at that role, whatever that was, and that added to the versatility that you had, the on the fly versatility that you had.
For sure. I mean, we had to play together, so as long as everyone's pulling their weight, it's going to sound. And they have weight to pull, it's going to sound really good,
Did you have a relationship with Sheila Rogers?
How do you mean relationship?
No. Like because I mean, you've got somebody who
cut that out, of course.
Not at all what I meant. You've got these two wings of the musical portion of the Letterman show. Somebody who I would consider to be, I'd put her in the top. She's not the top. She's in the top 3 musical bookers of any show of all time. Yeah. I would say.
I knew her, and but I mostly saw, it was like a work related, like she one time I went up to the office and she said, Dave wants to do the drum solo week. You
Yeah.
know, she would tell me about the plan. We would talk about that, you know. But and her son, and I knew Hal Wilner. I'd done a couple of record dates with them. And her son went to school, same school as my son. I think he was maybe a year behind, or
Yeah.
in the same year. I'm not sure. And so, we had like tangents in common, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. The reason I ask again, because that's a huge piece of the puzzle as well. The bands that would be booked, the people that would be booked either to work with you guys or things like that.
Well, she might have had more conversations with Paul.
Yeah.
Again, I was like, come in, you're going to play with so and so.
Yeah.
There was no input like, would you like to, or blah blah blah. I wasn't about that at all. So her line of work didn't, but of course I knew her and stuff, and saw her and all that. We were very friendly.
Yeah. I'm just that was part of the alchemy too, was just the artist that would be there that you would end up collaborating with. She obviously had a huge hand in that. And one of the questions I had too was when you had folks who would come in and play with the band either for a night or for a week, did you ever have any friends who said to you, hey, I'd love to play with you guys for a week? Did you have people trying to get you to book them on the show ever? It'd be so much fun to play with the CBS Orchestra.
Yeah, it would, but I mean, it became like, we can't do it. I think I tried to get Jeff Healey on the show once.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
another Canadian right there. Wow.
He got on the show, and I think I put in a word for Joe when I was playing with Joe to sit in with the band.
Yep.
But that was something that I kind of shied away from because again, like all these departments were different, and the booking department, I don't think wanted to be necessary, and this is just a surmise, told by the band members, hey, you should book this and you should book that. So it's kind of infringing on their department.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Now, that being said, with that, you've got, Dave's input, you've got the booking department and whatnot, relationships form. And I don't know that there's a more special relationship that formed with you guys and with Warren Zevon. And you mentioned his name earlier, and I think it's we got to mention him. He from a music enthusiast perspective, a fan perspective, many folks believe that show was a gateway to learning about Warren Zevon and his unique place. The quirkiness, the thoughtfulness, the irreverence of his writing, of his music. I wouldn't know Warren Zevon if it wasn't for your show. And I'm one of many, many, many people who share that sentiment. How aware were you of Warren before the show and Warren kind of collided with each other? Right. And did you know each other?
I knew about Excitable Boy, and I knew about the Bruce, the sax player on the show, who had done a tour with, what was his name, Richard Marx, and Warren had opened up for the show.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, yeah.
But Warren on solo piano and Richard Marx's audience, I'm not sure was a good fit.
Yeah, that's an interesting concert.
I didn't hear it, but I got to know Warren very well because there was the time when Paul wasn't there, and I had to kind of say, okay, like, what are the songs we're going to do? We did all his songs. So I got to learn his whole repertoire, and I got to say, okay, we're doing this, we're doing that, and kind of conduct the whole band. To the point that he asked me to do a record, which was called My Rides Here, his album, second last record he did. And it was just me and him in the studio, and then he got a bass player. So it was a very kind of personal thing. And I got to play on an album of his, which was absolutely great. Yeah. And it was the record he did with all these other poets, but he was amazing. And then you go back and you hear these songs, and I got to really love them. And they are just like so clever and witty but deep. his words were like so poignant
Yes.
and beautiful and like really deep, you know.
Dave appreciated good writing, and clever and thoughtful, and I mean, yeah, absolutely a unique talent. One of my very favorite moments of that show ever was his last performance of Mutineer. I mean, and Mutineer's a great song. The album version's fine, but again, this is a prime example of one of these magical moments on the show where a different arrangement, a different tone, and whatnot. That song, that particular performance was just jaw dropping
Well, I
and
mean,
heart stopping.
the words take on a totally different meaning, you
Yeah.
know, in that situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved Warren. It was great. And then we would communicate, we'd talk on the phone. He was getting into golf, you know, before he got diagnosed. And so, and I was, you know, into it. And so, you know, we would talk about that. He'd hit me to a Carl Hyacin book.
Hmm.
I think that featured golf. He got me on the phone with Carl,
Yeah.
you know, to talk to him while we were in the studio. It was like, he was great. Warren was great.
Oh, that is excellent. I'm glad you brought up golf. When did you take it up?
Well, I took it up as an adult, which was
Yep.
that was my first mistake. Apparently, a rather big one. My dad was a very good golfer,
Uh-huh.
but you know, so I took it up as an adult, and I've been struggling with it ever since. But I really do enjoy it, you know, especially because I was like in New York and I couldn't surf anymore, and
Yeah.
so barely, you know, we'd go out to places. We'd go out to Long Beach or you know, out on Long Island or whatever. But
Yep.
yeah, I really love the game. It's fun.
All right. Kalter, Ches, Bruce, or you, who's the better golfer? Who am I putting my money on?
I would put it on me, but you know, the Alan, you know, at that point, Alan belonged to a club. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think he did better than we did because you know it was his club and he got to play like 3 or 4 times a week, whereas we played once in a blue moon. You
Yeah.
know,
But
I
that was
can,
the foursome, right? It was the
yeah,
four of
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I can play a bit more now, but you know, but yeah, I would still put the money on me. I wouldn't put too much money. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I've got literally a list of a huge list of things. Coulter's on the list. I want to talk. Let's go Coulter Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then maybe a little bit about Dave, and then we're unless there's anything else you want to talk about. I know you're extremely busy to this day. And again, like yeah, like you say, the show ends, you jump on a bus with Joe Bonamassa for 4 or 5 years or whatever, complete change, and you're still this in-demand thing. You told me about your day before we started this. It's crazy. I'm glad you're so busy. I'm glad you're still doing what you love so much. It's such a beautiful thing when musicians can say they're doing what they love. You know, there's a lot of musicians just looking for gigs. So I'm so grateful that you are still doing so much cool stuff. The crescendo that we talked about, the opportunities that showed up for you, you know, you got the gig and it's building and building and you got this reputation, and suddenly you find yourself being the house band for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And how crazy was that? Because that led to a whole bunch more of these very similar pinch me type moments, but just in a different setting. And you're doing the Letterman show at the same time. That's
Right.
bonkers. Like that's a bonkers
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, we used to well, first of all, I missed the first Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Stephen Hiram, I guess, did that one.
Yeah.
But I did the second one, and I probably did, I can't remember, but at least 14 of them after that. And so, you know, we got to play with the classic bands because they were all kind of inducted first. I think the year that I was there, the first year I was there, it was like Dylan and the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and you know what I mean? It was crazy. And you know, the Jam in those days, the Jam before it was on TV,
Yeah.
the jams was just Bill Graham pulling people out of the audience to jam. It would literally was a jam. And so you'd have like maybe 5 or 6 of world-class guitarists, world-class, all playing together. But I mean, it was like just a mess sometimes. You know what I mean? It was like they all sound like a bunch of cats in an alley, but they all like just doing their thing, you know. But amazing. It was amazing. And I think on one of them, I don't know where everyone was. I was playing with the Who, which was just great. I mean, I'm looking for that. I've got to try and find that tape because I don't remember other people in the band doing that. I don't know how come I was up there, and maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly. But then when it went to TV, it started to get much more formal,
Yes.
more arranged. It didn't have that spontaneity. And like, you know, we haven't done it for a few years. It's kind of changed into something else now.
Yeah.
And it's also like different kind of bands going in now, more, you know, more from 20 years ago as opposed from like really a long time ago,
Yeah.
you know. But it was great. It was great. And you know what, you know, I mean, I had nothing to do with getting the gig. So it was like, other than being in the band,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like whoever got the gig, Paul, you know what I mean? I guess like the reputation of the Letterman band being a chameleon style band and backing up so many people was like, that's what made it possible. Okay, that would be a good band to have. And, you know, as you said, it was super popular back then. So, you know, it made sense for everyone. But, you know, we would like go to the Letterman show and we would have to literally run over to the Waldorf where they would have the thing and, you know, be there and ready to play, you know. And then you'd be on stage the whole time, you know, the whole show, you know, because it was different. Now it's much more. I mean, I did it last year I played with Jimmy Page at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We inducted
Think about that sentence. Think about that. I played with Jimmy Page at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's a crazy fucking sentence, Anton.
we inducted Link Ray, and I used to play with Link for years with Robert Gordon and on his solo project. And Jimmy Page was a big Link Ray fan who, like he said, he was responsible for him kind of getting going, playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the guy that put it together, Perry Margoloff, he knew me from the Link days, and he was friendly with Jimmy, and so he said, you know, you got to use Anton. So, like all of a sudden, I get a call. You know, you want to, you know, do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Jimmy Page. Again, I said, well, I'll think about it. No, I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, for a microsecond. That's right.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. That was a thrilling experience. It really was. It was great. But, you know, it was a very different show from when I'd done it was in a much bigger venue. And, you know, it's made for TV kind of thing. You know, it was different to how those early rock and roll Hall of Fame shows were.
Yeah. You know, you think about these opportunities that the show led to and created. Did you do you have forgive me for not knowing this, but if I'm nothing if not daft, Anton. That's one thing that I am, is daft for sure. Do you have your own like drumsticks and things like that? Have there been things named after you? What are some of the things that have kind of I want to get to the video in a second, the drum video, which is so good. But
Well,
what are some of the things?
I have a CD that I really like called Figments.
Yep.
And I still think that's, even though the record's kind of you know, done a while ago, it still sounds amazing to me.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's great. So I got that. I got the sticks, you know, and I have the endorsement of the drums and the cymbals.
Did you ever have an instrument that was custom made, like to the specificity of Anton Fig?
I got a snare drum. An Anton Fig snare drum, which was like one of Yamaha's like absolute best-selling snare drums.
Amazing.
Yeah, so which was cool, and that was from being on the show.
Yep.
You know, they asked me if I wanted to have my own drum because it's so visible up there. In fact, the Yamaha logo on the bass drum was right behind Paul's head. So apparently that logo. And by the way, the show asked me to take it off many, many times.
I can imagine. Yep.
And I said, no, I can't do it. They give me the drums. I can't do it, you know, but I kind of had that up there, and it was one of the most visible logos on television for many, many years.
Yep.
So that, and then also Zildjian sponsored me when I was still in Spider and really not known. And so I was able to, by the way, Spider was managed by Bill Coyne, who managed Kiss. So
There we go.
that happened after Ace, but anyway, so I was
They give you an endorsement deal back then. That's crazy.
I know it's crazy. But then I was able to put the cymbals up on the show. So, I felt like I paid them back,
Absolutely. Yeah, and then some.
Forever, yeah.
God, I could talk to you all day. I hope I can convince you to come back one day. I want to have a couple of you on at the same time. I think that would be a lot of fun. I'd talk to Will about that. That'd be neat to have maybe you and Bruce or you and somebody on at the same time to talk about some of these moments. You're so gracious with your time. Alan Kalter, one of the reasons why when Rick and I were talking about this show, when Shecky and I were talking about this show, one of the catalysts of oh my God, we have to do this was when Alan passed away. It was just one of those things. Yeah. And Rick said to me, he goes, "Oh, Mike, if you've been doing this show, Alan would have done the announcing for you. He would have been on all the time. He's one of the kindest people that you'd ever meet. One of the most clever people. You became friends with him, a golf buddy with him. Any words about Alan Kalter before we?"
Well, he was a great guy, really nice, and you're right, kind and compassionate. One of the things that I liked about him the most was, no, it's not the thing I liked about him the most. One of the things that I thought was really funny that he did was when he would go on stage to make his to warm up the audience, because he would warm up the audience before the band came on, and then the band would warm up the audience with a couple of songs, and then the show would start.
Yeah.
So he would be announced, and now the greatest announcer in the world, and please clap for this guy is like the best and all that. And he would walk out and he would be the person that was saying all this stuff about himself. I thought that was really funny.
Yep.
It was a while before I didn't even realize. And then one day I was kind of standing backstage and he hadn't gone on yet. And I see him talking away and doing the whole spiel and then walking out. I thought it was great.
Yeah, he's just a talent of talents. One of the things where again that just made the show better that he didn't come along at the very beginning, but when he did come along, boy, did the show it added a new dimension to the show.
Yeah, he did some very funny bits. He really did. They had the right, again, the writers write the stuff.
Absolutely.
He delivered, and they wrote well for the characters, he did some very funny stuff on the show.
Absolutely. I'm moving into the close now, not because I want to, but because I'm trying to be respectful of your time.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I'm having fun, but I do.
You got a bear of a day. No. You've already
I got a crazy day today. Yeah.
One of the things that I loved about you, and we are bringing it in. This is the end here. Unless there's anything else you want to say, but really at the end of the day, I think a good example of this, there's many examples of this, how much the show trusted you. Hey, we need a shot of Brian Teta looking interesting or scary or creepy or whatever. Where can we put him? Oh, let's put him on Anton's lap, just these moments that would happen. Oh, let's give it to Anton. You could tell that they gave you the ball many, many, many times. And it's cool to see when somebody on the band had a project of some sort, and how the show would endorse it and the show would do something fun with it. When you brought your video out, when you released your instruction video, not only did they talk about it on the show, there was a fun top 10 about it. And Dave actually, put his formidable drumming skills, as part of the video and whatnot. They highlighted you. Dave highlighted you personally. The greatest broadcaster that's ever lived, as far as we're concerned, would do that. How did that feel? You got to be a part of, let's talk about the man himself. Let's finish that way. I don't usually throw a ton of pointed questions about Dave. I want, this show to be about the guest, but at the same time, clearly the broadcaster had an affinity for the guest. And how does that feel? Like, what a cherry on top, knowing that this guy feels the way about you, the way that he does, and endorses some of these things. Let's finish talking about Dave.
Well, I thought Dave was amazing. I really looked up to him, and he would often say, there's no off position on the genius switch.
Yes.
And I think in his case, that was absolutely true. He was
Yeah.
like really funny at will, and really smart, and very respectful of other people.
Yeah.
And he was very encouraging to me. I mean, he did a lot of great stuff for me. He did the video thing. Also on my record, he liked my record, and we did it. One of the songs we did, Inside Out. We performed it on the show live.
Yeah.
He, towards the end of the show, my son, who kind of grew up backstage and who wrote he's at USC. He wrote his college essay on growing up at the Letterman show.
You're kidding.
Yeah. And he got in. They bought it. But
Oh, I'd love to read that one day. That's
yeah.
fantastic. Oh, that's charming. That
Yeah,
night that he brought him up on the show was amazing.
I mean, Letterman knew him since Letterman's son is a year younger.
Yeah.
And Letterman would come through and kind of like terrorize him on the way through. But then one time he brought him up and he just picked him up and put him on the drum riser. And
Yep.
so he played the whole show with us. I mean, I looked around and going, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I don't know, Dave. So I went, go up to my locker and get a beret for him.
Yep.
And I gave him percussion stuff. And then Letterman said, he said the percussion sections never sounded better. And then he said, this looks sort of like eerily like a scene from Whiplash. But yeah, but anyway, I mean, he is amazing. He's absolutely amazing. A comic genius, a wonderful, wonderful person, a very private individual.
Yep.
And you have to honor that, with him. But he will be extremely nice. He was extremely nice and extremely good to me and very encouraging. And I am forever indebted for having known him and spending 30 years of my life sort of tangentially close to him.
Absolutely. Yeah. Getting to be the one of the best seats in the house and at times part of the show. I always said that if there was but for me, I go back to the music and again, I loved Dave so much, but one of the equally, because I'm such a music fan, what you guys did every single night, these unique moments that you created. Anton, you are literally a part. I say this to many of the folks that I throw the intro out and to see if they want to come on the show. And I say, look, I'm not the person I am if it wasn't for what you all did together. And it's true. It's true. I'm a different person because of it. And you fed my music fandom so much. And I always said, if there was one part of the show that I wish that I could be a part of, especially later on, it was in the intercom with Paul had to say with you all, to me, the show within the show, the camaraderie was so obvious. Anton, I can't thank you enough for coming here. I'm going to twist your arm to try and come back at some point. We just barely scratched the surface, but again, on behalf of everybody who would consider themselves an enthusiast of David Letterman and company, you are a huge part of the company, Anton. And we just want to say thank you so much for everything that you have done in helping us become the odd humans that we are. You were a part of that. Congratulations on this amazing run. May it continue for years and years and years to come in new ways. I love seeing you on the Tonight Show. And when the band does get back together those times, maybe we can create moments where the band gets together for, another big reunion of some sort. Wouldn't that be fun? But thank you so much for everything that you have done, Anton.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's great that it's liked and appreciated. I'm just moving forward in the best way that I know how,
You absolutely are. May our paths cross more and more, sir. Thank you for your time today. I'll shoot the outro separate, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. How much fun was that? I think, for anybody who views this show or listens to this show with any sort of regularity, first off, again, as always, what is the matter with you? Second off, I think you understand how big of a deal that was for a conversation piece for those of us that love the Letterman mythos. Anton, what a classy guy. And it was just a delight to talk to him about this stuff. I can't wait to have him back on and to get more. I've got a card here full of stuff that we didn't even get to. There's so much meat on that bone. And if there's an example of a reason why we should pursue somehow a live on Letterman type offering, whether it's a podcast, whatever it is, we can go back and explore some of these amazing moments. This is the example. He's had literally so many amazing, unique moments within music that he forgets them. They forget them. The band was part of all of these amazing, one of a kind moments. And it's great to go back and revisit these things. What a great guy. Our thanks to Anton Fig for taking time out of his insanely busy schedule. The guy is still so busy. And we met at Rupert's retirement party, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. Just we gotta find a window. And just like Will, like, I mean, I love that these cats are still so busy. And it's just a testament to the talent that they have, that they're still working and in demand, and having all of these amazing new moments and making new moments looking forward. Just really, really grateful for Anton Fig today. The hello-deli.com is our one and only sponsor on the Letterman podcast. Mugs, shirts. I think now that Letterman's been off the air for almost 10 years, I think a Late Show with David Letterman shirt it's throwback, and throwbacks are in right now. Get yourself the only place that you can buy official Late Show with David Letterman merchandise is hello-deli.com. This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night.
Overcoat and underpants.